Hey guys, Dustletter Magic here. We've got a couple days before the actual spoilers sort of start for Strixhaven, but Mark's back at it again with his crazy half the information teasers where he basically outlines all the stuff we're going to hate about the set. So basically he states, here's things that'll be true, but it might not be the whole story. So, in other words, this is going to look terrible, but it's only about 75% as bad as it looks the way I'm listing it. I guess he gets a kick out of that. So, anyway, the first thing he lists is a white card with the rules text, draw 3 cards. Fantastic. Now remember, rules text is not reminder text, so that just means it's on the card in the things about what you do. But it's not a new mechanic or keyword. Well, necessarily. Well, green has hyper-capable creatures mixed with too much card draw right now, and that worked out great. Let's do it to white. Next up, we're going to see a planeswalker you know, but not as you know them. What is it, Tybalt in disguise again causing trouble? It could be like Will and Kenrith or whatever, but like on their own separate cards, maybe? I don't know, it really seems to imply a disguise, so, I don't know. Next up, we're going to see a card featuring Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa, or at least his likeness, for winning the World Championship. So I guess they're back to throwing Magic Pro players on cards again. Watch them put it on like some horribly broken card that everybody hates and then they ban. And then he's like, oh great, that's the one with my face on it. Next up, a spell with 3 X's in its mana cost. I mean, that's kind of concerning. It's probably a really strong effect for whatever X's value is, and that means if you can get to 9 or 12, you're going to, blow the game up. And we don't quite have the runaway amounts of mana that we did with, what was that, Wilderness Reclamation? And, the whole blue-green thing. Remember the Hydroid Crisis deck and all that? Yeah, we don't quite have that, but, I mean, we do still have a tripler. Every time you tap a land, tap for 3. So if it becomes necessary to generate that much and you can actually do something with it, I mean, green's already a little out of control right now, especially mixed with the card draw, but really the problem is the card draw. But boy, if you could throw like 21 mana at this and it does something, I'm leery about that. Next up, he says the introduction of a new Evergreen Keyword. That in itself does not make sense because it could be a keyword we've seen before and they're just making it evergreen, but that's not really the way he phrased it. So it's going to be a brand new mechanic in the form of a keyword, of course. And with no testing, no asking the public what they think, and no letting the dust settle, they've already decided to make it an evergreen keyword. That is beyond idiotic, but my feeling is what they really did is they put something that's been spelled out into a keyword, like mill. I mean, you could call mill evergreen. It's pretty much in every set. So that's more likely than, hey, we came up with something brand new, and now we're doing it from now on with no public input whatsoever. I mean, yeah, they would do that. It's just they're less likely to do that than to just name something. Next up, oh my gosh, a red sorcery that you can have as many copies of in your deck as you want. Everybody's super done with that ridiculousness. So that whole, you can violate the laws of Singleton because it says so on the card, or here, have 7 dwarves. Yeah, no, we're sick of that. The rules are written the way they are for a reason, okay? I don't even care what this spell is or how good or bad it is. I don't want it. It breaks the game at a fundamental level. Next up, I don't like the way he phrased this. So he says, a future shifted card appearing for the first time in a premiere set other than Future Sight. I believe premiere is their word for a standard set. So something that was printed in the set called Future Sight as a time shifted card that's future shifted, not past shifted or alternate timeline shifted. So it's like, oh, sometime in Magic's future, this might become a real card. And like now we're seeing it. So it's honestly a pretty short list of realistic things, but it'll be interesting, to see which one they go with. Next up, an MDFC or modal double-face card with the same card type on both sides that hasn't been printed before. So instead of, God/creature and then artifact, it'll be like artifact, or creature or something. I initially read this as, oh, the card hasn't been printed before. And I'm like, yeah, duh, obviously this is not a reprint set. And then I think what he meant to say with that very unclear statement is that combination of card types hasn't been seen before or printed before. So it probably is artifact, I think. I don't think we've ever seen that. I know we've seen creature on both sides. But then again, maybe we haven't, because he said modal double-face card, which means you just choose it. Those were just invented like 2 or 3 sets ago, so of course we haven't seen it. If you're thinking of, what's that laboratory, whatever, and then it flips into that insect thing, oh, that's creature on both sides. That's not modal. Modal means you choose one side or the other to cast. You can only transform that under some circumstances, same with the werewolves. So that's a giant nothing burger, other than, oh, it's going to have MDFCs. Great, those aren't totally a pain. Even on digital, I found those incredibly annoying. Next up, a card sharing something never shared before. Once again, like from a literary, actual word definition standpoint, that could mean absolutely anything. Shared as in a story reveal, a detail about a character, what? A nature of the multiverse? I mean, sharing like a permanent or like something about ownership? I don't know. That seems less likely, but that's such an unclear statement. I'm just going to skip past it. This next one, I feel like if I gave enough of a crap, I could actually solve this, but I don't. A cycle of enemy dual lands finishing off a 10-card cycle. So I guess we've never seen them before in this color combination. We've only seen the first 5, and this will be like the other color combinations. That's a very, very, very short list of unfinished land cycles. I'm just too lazy to go check every land ever printed in the history of the game to find out what it is. I think one's that burning whatever, what's that stupid land that's also a creature that everybody cheats with? I think we're still missing some of those. I think they printed like the other 4, but we're still missing 5 of them. I don't know. I could speculate, but who cares? Next up, we've got, here are some snippets from rules text that appear in the set. And the first one, I already hate it. Whatever this is, I hate it. Search your library and graveyard for up to 4 creature cards with different names. Let me guess what you do with them. Anyway, next up we've got otherwise put a study counter on it. So we're going to see study counters doing a thing. Not surprising. I do like, charge counters and unique, knowledge counters, lore counters, and that kind of stuff, because it tends to be something that builds up over time and, gets you from weak to more powerful with a little bit of investment and risk in case you lose it, but then also giving you something to do to spend your mana on that doesn't involve drawing cards in case you're drawing dead or you top deck a land late game, which is how these charge up types of effects work. So this should be interesting. I kind of like it already, but we'll see. Next up, when a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability to trigger, we all know that it'll either be counter it or duplicate it. Panharmonicon was a mistake. It was a huge mistake. So if they're going to reprint some version of that, that will also be a mistake. Next up, untap each creature you control, then tap any number of creatures you control. Okay. There's probably some kind of unique combat ability. It's definitely interesting. It really just comes down to how many creatures do you control, because if you're going to untap them first and then retap them, well, then the whole point wasn't untapping them. Why didn't you just go with the count? Just for each creature you control. Or, based on the number of creatures you control, do this, because that's really what it is, except that when they're tapped, you're then, opening up to a swing, potentially? With no blockers, but I guess they wanted you to include already tapped stuff for your second main phase, so whatever this is, it's very interesting, and it's worded that way on purpose, very carefully. Next up, we've got just the phrase, pay 10 life. I'm sure that won't be some degenerate nightmare that people just tibble on turn 2. Next up, the phrase, repeat this process 6 more times. I mean, is anybody just thinking, no matter what that is, it probably won't be good? Next up, the phrase pests, bats, insects, snakes, and spiders. So I guess all of them will be on at least one card. Well, it's like, what else would you have hanging around in a school or outside of school? If it's basically loosely Harry Potter D&D kind of thing. Yeah, snakes and spiders and insects and bats. I mean, it makes sense. But then they've just got general pests, which, wouldn't that apply to the other 4 they just said? So I'm interested to see what those are specifically. Next up, we've got each mode must target a different player. So I have a feeling it'll be maybe not choose one or both, but just here's your 2 modes, or choose 2 out of 4. And then they're all negative. And then one you basically have to hit yourself. And then the other one hits your opponent. And you just make the worst one conditionally go to them. But then oh my gosh, would this card be insane in multiplayer Commander, which is probably the point. They are trying to stick Commander cards into Standard to make some more money off the set, so I'm not surprised that we're going to see something like that. It also could be both effects are positive, and you hit yourself with the most beneficial to you right now, but then you also hit your opponent with one, because then that wouldn't be quite as good in Commander. So next up, whenever an opponent activates an ability that isn't a mana ability, Okay, I like that. I like something that pumps the brakes a little bit or does an interesting trigger whenever they do an ability. Next up, when will they ever learn where X is the number of cards in your library? When would I ever, while playing paper, want to pick up my library and without changing the order of it, sit there and count the cards one at a time up into the 30s or 40s in all likelihood, and then remember the number? And if it's like traumatized, it's like, well, now take half of it. You got to take half the cards in your library. So you count them all, then you count half of them again. On digital, it's just like whatever, but getting a deck count verification, having your opponent watch you card by card do it at a tournament, just it's a pain. It's an enormous pain. It is such a big we got this intense battle going on, let's hurry up and stop and just pause the game for a minute while I count things. Just a complete and utter waste of time. So finally, he gives away some creature type lines from the set. We're going to see Turtle Druid, not surprising in the least. Bird Warlock, of course, I think we already saw that in the art, actually. Frog Wizard, sure. Spirit Dwarf, now that one's interesting. It would be like some kind of ghost, but then specifically a dwarf. Troll Druid. Okay, I mean, they aren't really that intelligent, but I guess there's exceptions. Next up, Ibat, which, I mean, I can't wait to visualize that one. Sounds like something wizards would have hanging around. I mean, come on. Then we're going to have Legendary Creature Vampire Warlock. Okay, I'm starting to wonder if the Warlocks will be, traditional, basically 100% evil aligned, and they'll be the ones that, like, Strixhaven is fighting or whatever. Or if they're just one of the houses, and it'll basically be Slytherin, the house where all the bad kids are. Slytherin doesn't necessarily mean... Yes, it does. Yeah, you're all criminals. Shut up. Being in Slytherin is bad. I don't care what anybody says about, it just means you have a drive for power and maybe you'll become like a CEO of a company type of... No, you're evil. And I think one of the colleges already kind of looks like that. So, kind of drives me nuts in the whole Harry Potter world that are like, well, this is clearly the bad one. This is clearly the evil one. Anybody gets sorted into it automatically is under scrutiny from everybody else. I've got a question. Why not get rid of it then? Anybody who gets sorted into Slytherin automatically goes to like the remedial education, like slash detention slash, parole. Like it should be like you just failed a psych evaluation. Like now we got to keep an eye on you. So if they're going to have like the kind of evil college, it's obvious one of the ones involving black mana, why even have it in the first place? In both cases, here in Harry Potter, I think it's going to be, well, the founder was an evil aligned asshole, so why let it be a thing? Anyway, could be reading too much into it, but Warlock never means anything good. It basically means a pact with, like, the devil or a demon, so that's usually not the most friendly neighborhood wizard. Next up, we've got Legendary Creature Orc Shaman. Probably one of those hipster teachers. Legendary Creature Dryad Druid, which, duh. That'll be the nature hipsters. Then Legendary Artifact Creature Construct. I hope it's a school guard. That'd be cool. I mean, every school needs a giant, guardian statue. I wouldn't even be surprised if we see 5 of them, one for each school. They're all colorless, maybe, or maybe colored artifacts. And then they're like a ton of mana, but hyper powerful and very defensive. So that's it for now. He says, don't forget to tune in to not Twitch, go to Desolator Magic's channel instead on March 25th. That's surprising that he would say that. Followed by our Twitch channel is awful. It is such cringe. Oh my gosh. Just watch third parties cover it. Holy crap, I can't believe these people still work here. Okay, just kidding. For legal reasons, I have to say he didn't actually say that, but I'm saying that. So, I mean, this is pretty tame compared to other stuff in the past. I really don't like the whole... count 47 cards in your library and report the number, which is just tedious, stupid, and annoying. And then, oops, I accidentally dropped a card. Oops, I accidentally reversed my whole library. Oops, I, cheated and snuck a card into the top while you weren't looking. It's just, there's nothing good about that. But if that's as bad as it gets, I mean, like a lot of these, I'm worried, but a spell with 3 X's in its mana cost could be complete garbage. I mean, who knows? It could be a very hazardous giant mana outlet, or it could be an unplayable card. I mean, we don't know till we see it. So, this is pretty tame. I think in the last one, didn't he say something like, an alternate win condition that involves this? And everybody's like, well, that's cancer. And then it was. Or I think he said, like, poison counters are back. And everybody's like, oh, great. And then it turns out, yeah, that deck is one of the most obnoxious decks in the world to play against. So, great. Every time that stupid 2-cost hits play, everybody's like, oh, now I get to dance around this crap instead of trying to actually play my deck. Great. Now I get to burn my removal on a 2-cost creature. That's always a good strategy if you want to win, right? So yeah, we've seen worse. I mean, once again, I have no interest in these entering standard or what it's going to do to the meta or all the new broken decks or what's going to take to the current tier 1 decks and do to them and make them even worse. No interest in that whatsoever. Just care about the lore, the characters, the art, and, you know, the normal non-gameplay stuff. I know the Kaldheim storyline was pretty interesting. So, I mean, hey, no matter how bad a set looks, lore monkeys, we're out there watching for the cool lore. So, hey, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time.